We are continuing with our JSON review today. Just to review what we did yesterday, we reviewed what JSON is. And JSON, there were other technologies along before JSON was used or more popular. There was XML, there was SOAP, but JSON is very easy to read, very easy for parsing, and JSON is very popular. So JSON is what we've been using throughout the course. But just keep in mind, there's other technologies for like formatting web content. For example, XML, like if you subscribe to an RSS feed, most likely it's coming from an XML format. XML is a bit more work to parse, but it is possible. And there's also libraries for it. But as far as like JSON is really easy to parse and read as well. Parsing various structures, that's what we worked on yesterday. Today, our agenda is just to finish example 4, and we'll pick it up again next Monday or Monday with parsing more JSON. What we'll go into is parsing JSON from a local file. Like for example, if you get a code challenge where the JSON is embedded in the app, or rather there's a file, a .json file, you have to be able to parse that using the bundle class. So we'll start off with that on Monday, and we'll conclude on Tuesday, going back to URL session without any sort of wrapper, because we've been using a wrapper for a while now, but it's very easy to forget bare bones, like how to use URL session by itself. So we'll do that on Tuesday, and that should conclude our JSON review. And along the way, we'll also see unit testing with a JSON blob, just to test your model, very similar to what we did with Playgrounds. But as far as like testing JSON goes, Playgrounds, in my opinion, is the fastest way to test your model against JSON data. You open up a Playgrounds, you put some JSON in there, you write your struct, you write your decodable code, and you're done. Very simple, very quick. You don't have to open up a new project and get like view controllers. Simple Playgrounds, get your JSON working, and you're good to go. Then you could import your model into the project or whatever you want. But as far as like, I'm sorry? Go ahead. Oh, I thought it was a question. But as far as like testing JSON, this is by far like the fastest way to really test some JSON on the fly. Okay, so yesterday we did example 1 here where the top level was a dictionary. We got that to work. We did the second example where the top level is an array. We got that to work as well. And we concluded yesterday by using the example 3 here to parse into our Swift Playgrounds. And the top level is still a dictionary, but here we had multiple keys. So what we did, we used a Swift dictionary where the key was a string and where the value was a custom object. In that case, the custom object was called strain. And the custom object had its ID, the race, flavors, and so on. For today, our one module will just be parsing this particular JSON blurb here. And this is coming from the random users API. So let me actually slack out the endpoint. And as I slack out the endpoint, validate that you do get data back into in your Postman. So I'll go ahead and slack it out now. That's not it. No API key required. Okay, so I slacked it out. Load it in your Postman. And let me know when you have your data in Postman.
It works for me.
It's working for you?
Mhm.
Okay, cool. And the objective of this particular example here is to parse heterogeneous objects. What do I mean by that? Heterogeneous objects here represents, for example, I have postcode here. Postcode is an integer. But if we were to, in your Postman, let me close this. In your Postman, if you simply type in or press Command F, so Command F will bring up the Finder here, or the Find window. And here you could type in postcode. And there's 50 results because we have 50, we're asking for 50 results for users. So here, postcode, the first result I have is an integer. Does everybody have integer or string? It might be different. What's the first data type for us? or for you?
Integer.
An int. Okay, so if you see the up and down arrow? If you click on the down arrow, it's going to take you to the next result where postcode appears. The next result for me is a string. What is it for you? Is it an int or a string?
Integer.
Yours is an int. The second instance is an int as well?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the third instance?
Int.
The fourth instance?
Int.
Okay, so keep going and let me know when you get a string instance because it does vary.
Is there a way to query that before, or like you would just have to catch it when you're testing your JSON?
In our case here, I'm able to test it on the second instance, right? But it could happen when you actually run the endpoint, and as you get in data, you'll get an error on one of them saying, hey, you tried to parse an int but found a string.
Maybe it works different. I've gone to like 12 and I still have.
Yeah, mine went to like 10 before I got a string.
Okay, that's okay. I'll just send out my example. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, so let me get my example going and I'll make sure it's formatted correctly and I'll send it in Slack. But on Monday, not Monday, on Tuesday when we do URL session, we'll actually use that endpoint, and for sure there will be results where it varies between integers and strings, as opposed to just trying to get a sample example in the JSON. So let me go validate that in JSON lint, and I will Slack it over. Paste it in here, and I think I need square bracket and curly bracket. Validate. Okay, that's validated. And let me send it to Slack here. Okay, so grab that. That is our JSON. And we'll go to Playgrounds and continue on. Okay, so Playgrounds, we'll be creating a new file for Playgrounds. So right now we have 3 pages. We have our dictionary page, our array page, and our keys page. Right now, let's create a new page, new playground page, and we'll call it Parsing Heterogeneous type. That's okay. Parsing and what I mean by heterogeneous here, I'm talking about mixed types. Example. Mixed types. Example. Postcode. On occasion is an int or this will lead to decoding while parsing. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with here. Our JSON is mixed, where we have a property or a field that could be an integer. It could also be a string. One object could be an int, the next object is string. That's not gonna parse as we expect it to, so we have to work around that. So we have our JSON data. Let's go ahead and put it into our constant here. Okay, the JSON data is coming from Slack. And let's go, let me see if this works here. Nope. Raw foundation, nope. Make sure to import foundation. And now we could get our function on our string, data.utf8. Don't forget to unwrap it because it's an optional. Okay, so up here we have our JSON data. And to verify, actually we'll verify in code, no need to verify here. But our postcode here is an integer, or it could also be a string. But let me actually just search real quickly to verify to make sure. So postcode, we have 3 results. This is the first one. So the first result here is an integer, and the second one is a string, right? So this is the problem we have. So let's continue on with our models. Swift models. Let me get a different screen so I'm not going back and forth here. Sorry. All right, so JSON is, where is it?
I don't know. It seems as though my
Yep.
playgrounds is not
Your what?
working.
Your what is not working?
My playgrounds, because it's not like I imported found. Okay, never mind. It came up.
Okay, cool. All right, so we have, just to review, we have our JSON. Everybody got the JSON in Postman, correct?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So the top level is a dictionary. We have results is one key we after here. And let's go ahead and write some structs for it. So I will call this results wrapper conforms to decodable. At the top level, we have our results array. It's an array of items. We'll just call that person. That's okay. Great. Moving on. Let's create our person object. Person is decodable. And a person has a gender. Stop me if anything you want to review here. A person has a gender, which is a string.
Hey, Alex,
Yes.
can we just go over why don't we just always use codable as a default, even though
I mean, we could use it as a default.
encoding it?
No, we could.
Like,
we
as
could
far as best practices go, though, should you always
in our case here, we're not encoding anything. There's no place we'll be encoding anything. So I'm just using decodable. That's all what we're doing here.
Okay.
But if you were to use your Xcode project, you could use codable. But again, your Xcode project might not be sending data up to the web.
Yeah, I was just curious, does it like change the performance or anything? Because
as far as
codable on everything.
As far as performance goes, I don't think it impacts performance because it's just an alias that you could say you have 2 protocols and you just need 1 protocol. So why use 2 protocols?
Okay.
It's like using your table view, right? Like if you have a table view and you're not using the delegate, right? There's no need to say table view delegate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right. So you just use what you need. And if you need something else, you just add it later. But it's fine to just go codable right away.
Okay.
All right. All right, cool. But I want to make sure that we do understand the differences. That's why I tend to be explicit.
Okay.
All right, very good question.
Thanks.
So gender, we have, let's just get directly to what we need. Location, that's where we have the problem. Location is an object. Here we'll create a location struct because location has more items in it. So yesterday we had a different example. I think Tiffany was asking a question yesterday. Like if that's similar to the extra structs we create. Here we have to create an extra struct because location itself has other objects. If location just had an array of strings, that would be easier. I'll just say array of strings here. But that's not the case. Location itself has an object with key value pairs. Everybody sees that?
Yep.
All right, cool. So we'll create a location struct. And our location has, again, we're just interested in not too many properties here for now. We'll just use city, which is a string, and we'll use country, which is a string, and postcode. Postcode or lowercase. For mine now, I'm saying postcode is an integer, or it could be a string. Let's see what happens if we try to parse it string. Let's see what happens if we try to parse it as an integer here. Okay, cool. So we have our Swift model, and let's go on to decoding our object. Decoding JSON to Swift. So we wrap our do catch here. Our coding could throw an error. Top level is a dictionary. And we'll say try JSON decoder. And our top level is the results wrapper. Results wrapper.self and JSON. Great. So here we have our dictionary object. On that dictionary object, we have results, or we could just call it people. So dictionary.results is an array of person. We'll just call it people, and we'll dump people. And here, if we have an error, we'll also just dump error, like that. All right, so right now, our code is ready to parse. Let's go ahead and run the playgrounds. And here, as expected, we have an error. The error is coming from here. It's dumping the error, and the error is expected to decode an int, right? That's what we specified, but found a string because there was a string in one of the examples. So this is the problem we have. If we say, hey, maybe we change this to a string, maybe we thought it was wrong. We run it again, and we get similar error, expected to decode a string, right? Expected to decode a string, but found a number, okay? Because in here, we have a number. Our first postcode is a number. So that's not gonna be good. So how can we fix that? Well, we have to go one step further. We have to go one step further here, and we'll create a custom object. So create a custom object to represent postcode. Create a custom object to be the data type. So here we'll create an enum, and we'll call it postcode, conforms to decodable. And here we have two cases. So we'll handle the two cases in the JSON. Postcode property, where postcode can be either an int or a string. So that's a perfect data type to do this because we have our cases. So now we could say case int or case string. And we'll also use associated values to capture the value of postcode. Example, if it's an int, we will capture value. Great. So associative values here, we'll say this is an int, and over here we'll say this is a string. Right? Again, enums are very powerful for this exact example here. Now I could capture the value of the integer in my int value. I could capture the value of the string in my string case. All right, let's continue on. We also have to override the init with decoder initializer. We'll do it here. So init with, look for init from decoder, sorry. Init from decoder. Init from decoder. So init from decoder here is gonna get called when the JSON is about to get decoded. This initializer will get called and it's gonna pass in the values from the decoding object. So here is a good place for us to now, what I'll say here, handle the two cases of int or string. If it's not an int or a string, then we will an error. Okay, a lot of things here. 1 second, let's go ahead and write some sort of error enum to throw an error. Let's just call this up error. Conforms to error. And we throw in one error. We'll just say case missing value. That's all we have here for now. So if it's not an int, or string, throw this error. Right, just missing value. Again, the API could be so terrible that there's int, string, or boolean, right? If you have to change, I would change the API instead of using it at that point. But here we have two cases. We could handle that. Let's keep going. So back in our initializer, we'll say if let's, because we have to unwrap it, it could be an int, it could be a string. So here we'll say if let int value equal to, here we're using the decoder argument. So decoder dot single value container. This here returns the data stored in the decoder. In other words, whatever value is coming in, that's the value we are using here. Let me get some more space going. All right, so here we have decoder. Decoder is this object from our initializer. I want to access the containers object, and I want to decode. Here you could decode many native types. You could decode a Boolean value if that's what you're expecting. You could decode a double if that's what you're expecting, a float, int, 16, 32, and so on and so forth. Our first case, we expect an int. So just say decode int.self. Okay, and this, we need to wrap it as a try. So say try question mark, which is an optional. but we unwrap it, which is okay. Now we have the actual int value. So again, to review, we have to override the init from decoder as the object is getting decoded. We go ahead, we use the decoder object here. We access the function to access the actual value we expect. Here we expect an integer because that's what we call here, int value. And the next one will expect a string. Those are the two things we expect. If you're expecting other values in your JSON, that's what you try to decode. So here we're trying to decode, it could throw, right? We're trying to decode an int to an int value constant. And if we do get that int value constant in our if block, we'll go ahead and set self. Remember, self is the enum. Self here is our postcode instance. So self, I'll set it to int. And why we have the associated value? To capture this value here. Because the enum int by itself cannot capture a value. But here we have an associated value, so now we're able to say int value here. And we'll simply return, because we're done here. The next instance is the string, very similar. We'll say string value equal to try decoder dot single value dot decode. What are we trying to decode now?
A string.
A string. So we'll say string dot self. Thank you, Chelsea. And this is what we have. We'll say self equal to dot string. And the dot string is coming from our case here. This is the case we're trying to handle now. And the associated value is the string value here. So string value, and return. But the compiler is still not happy because here we have to return some sort of value or throw an error because this initializer throws. On Monday, we'll write a function that throws to give us some more review with throwing functions. So here, this is throwing. So we could throw an error here. So we'll throw our app error dot missing value, right? Was not an int or, right? If we get here, it's not an int or string, it's gonna throw this error. And that's about the heavy lifting work we have to do here to verify our postcode now cannot be a string here. It's gonna be a postcode object. Our postcode object is this enum here, conforms to decodable. We expect two cases. It could be an integer, it could be a string. We go ahead and override the initializer for decoder. We go ahead and investigate to see if it's an integer, put it in our int case. If it's a string, put it in our string case. If it's not one of those two things, then throw an error. Okay, and verify, make sure that your postcode now is not a string. It's not a string, it's our postcode type. When decoder sees postcode, it's going to go ahead and since we override the initializer, it's gonna use that initializer. And now we should be good to go.
I need to
Go ahead.
import. Did I need to import something to get that app error dot missing value?
App error is here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I must have walked away. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. App error is here. Our models are here. That's our app error. And yeah, so results, wrapper is the top level, JSON data structure is a dictionary. So this is our results wrapper. And then results is an array of person, or we could say user, up to you, what you want to call it. And here the person has a gender, location, there's more properties there, but this is the one case we're trying to handle because that is the problem here we have. Location has city, country, and now it has this custom type postcode. And again, when the decoder comes across postcode, it runs this initializer here. Okay, cool. Eric, is it working for you on your end? Are you able to get app error missing value now?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
All right, cool, very good. And now let's run
he had a Boolean value?
No, he did not have the enum declared.
Oh, okay.
The app error enum.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and run our playgrounds now.
Yeah, it works.
And now we have our postcode. We have no error now. And of course, if you want to handle, if you want to access the postcode, you have to switch on postcode to see if it's an int or a string. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
All right, very good. So this is the fourth case of things we could come across when we're dealing with JSON. And this one is heterogeneous data types, right? It's mixed types where you could get one thing or another. And go back to the lesson.
Alex,
Yes.
what do we need to switch? I'm sorry.
Oh, I was saying we didn't switch here, but for example, if you have your app, if you're working on your app and you want to get to postcode, right? Because what does postcode look like? Postcode is enum, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to get to the actual value, you have to switch on it. For example, let me actually just show you what I'm talking about. If trying to get to postcode, let's do first result. I'm actually going to force and wrap here for now. I'll say people dot first, right? Again, we're not forcing and wrapping, but I'm just using this there as a case. We force and wrapping when we know things have data, like what we did earlier with the JSON data. That's fine. But be careful, we're forcing and wrapping. Yes, everybody?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. All right. So here we have first.
All I heard was force unwrap all the time.
Here we have first person, and what are we trying to get to? Okay, the person's zip code. So let's do this postcode equals to first person dot location dot postcode. And here, if trying to access postcode, I would have to switch on postcode and say case int let value print value, and next case string let's just do string value instead. String value, and here let's just do int value. Let's just do int value here, and here we'll just print string value. And now let's remove the dump for now, because that's a lot of data. Where is it? I think right here. Let me just comment that out. Just comment out your dump line so you're not having so much stuff in your console, just for us to see what that looks like. And actually, we'll use some string interpolation. Say postcode is this, and postcode is this. Cool? Yes? We good?
Wait, hold on.
Actually, let's do some even more crazy programming. Let's do second person people, if we want to access the second person. And then here we'll just say first person at 0. Cool. All right, let's run this. Again, just comment out your dump people there so your console is not filled with information. And run the playgrounds again. And here we have postcode is an int because that's the first person. Everybody got that?
Yes. Yes.
Lupa, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
All right, very good. And then if you want to check the second person, well, we could do that very easily. I could just do second person here. And here, just do second person. And the second person should be a string. And here, second person is a string. Cool?
Yes.
Very good. All right, great. Any other questions? One, were you able to get your code working?
I'm about to run it.
Okay. Just to review the lesson and where we are and where we'll be on Monday. Overview. At this point, we have gone through JSON. We've gone through parsing different structures. We've gone through using playgrounds to parse JSON. On Monday and Tuesday, we'll be doing unit tests. We'll actually create a new project. We'll still push it to our GitHub, but we'll create a new export project. And then we'll start off with a unit test, and we will start off by accessing the bundle. So the JSON is going to be local. What we did between yesterday and today, we did example 1 here. Again, that README is up to date now on the lesson. So if you want to grab it, but I'll probably suggest writing your own README if you want.
Alex, quickly, sorry, really quickly. Can you go back to the code for a second? I just want to see. Okay, you switched on postcode. Oh, okay, so case. All right, yeah. And then you just said, okay, got you. Never mind. Thank you.
Yep. Very good. Cool. I mean, that could probably be a function, right? Maybe on the Enum. And here, so we did example 1, which is a dictionary. We did example 2, which is an array. We did example 3, which is mixed keys. And we just completed example 4, which is a heterogeneous structure, right? Actually, step 4, which is a heterogeneous structure here, okay? So keep those very handy because you'll get different JSONs as either your career or code challenges, you'll be getting different JSON to parse. And come Monday, we will look at URL session, and we'll also look at unit tests and app bundle stuff. And we'll make them generic, and we'll see why it's super useful to be generic types. And there's a challenge here for you to practice. So the challenge is parse the JSON, this following JSON here. Parse this JSON and put the results in the table view. Also include that key here. So everybody sees the key, yes?
Yeah.
So also include the key as part of the model, right? So just to give us practice, that's a good challenge there, just to practice. And again, we are also including this here as a property on the model itself. So that's the challenge on the lesson itself. Any questions?
The link for that lesson is what you gave us yesterday, right?
Yes, it's the same link. Verify right now to make sure it's there and scroll all the way to the bottom and see if you see challenge.
Is this on the same? What is this? Oh, it said parse the following JSON populated results.
It's on 6X channel.
Okay, gotcha.
It's there. I see it.
All right, cool. 6X channel slacked out yesterday at 1:35 p.m.
Okay.
All right, so we are good here. And don't forget what? Don't forget what? To push.
Yes, I have a question. My playgrounds is running and running and running, and it's not. Can you go back to the code one more time? I see I have people. I have left first, right, and right. I have everything. Well,
It might
maybe
be like
just being slow.
Yeah, it might be closing and reopening.
Yeah.
And sometimes even shut down and yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the next thing is let's push our code. So let's push our code, get status. Here, I'll just add everything. I'll add everything.
Update, it worked.
All right, cool, awesome. You are a rock star. So here, let's do added heterogeneous type. Type. And push. Maybe I have to pull. Maybe I have something there. I'm not sure. I did. Get push. And verify you have 4 pages. Let's verify that, and then we'll end. So go to your main repo. Go to your playgrounds folder. Go to your pages folder. And now you should have 4 pages. The last page we just worked on right now is this one. If you go to contents, you should have all the code we just wrote today in class. Cool?